the Honorable Fitzgerald Hines, Minister of National Security of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, members of the Diplomatic Corps, other members of Parliament, Professor Derek Chady, Deputy Campus Principal, and other members of the campus executive management team of the U.W.I St. Augustine Campus, Dr. Akola Lewis Cameron, Dean, Faculty of Social Sciences, the U.W.I St. Augustine Campus, Dr. Annita Montoute, Acting Director of the Institute of International Relations, heads of regional and international organizations, Air Vice Marshal Darrell Daniel, Chief of Defense Staff, and other senior members of the Protective Services of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Michał Pawiński, Institute of International Relations Faculty Lead of this symposium, Mr. Carlos Neptune, President of the Trinidad and Tobago Private Security Association, TTPSA, a symposium partner, Mr. Michael Grant, Vice President of the Greater Tunapuna Chamber of Industry and Commerce, GTCIC, a symposium partner, moderator and distinguished panelists, valued sponsors and collaborators, representatives of the public and private sectors, staff and students of the U.W.I St. Augustine Campus, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Crystal Cicharan. I am an alumna of the Institute of International Relations at the U.W.I St. Augustine, and I will be the Master of Ceremonies for this evening. It is an absolute honor to welcome you to the Crime Reduction and Prevention Symposium towards improved public security, crime reduction and prevention through the lenses of the private security industry and law enforcement agencies in Trinidad and Tobago. This symposium is a timely and crucial event, rooted in innovative research by Dr. Michał Pawiński, lecturer in international security studies, and Dr. Annita Montoute, acting director, both at the Institute of International Relations at the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine Campus. Their work has provided critical insights into crime prevention strategies from the perspective of the private security sector and public law enforcement. Among other reasons, this work is novel because it is the first piece of academic research which seeks to advance public security by examining the contributions that private security actors can make. Conceptualized as a critical platform for experts and professionals to address the urgent issues surrounding public security and crime prevention in Trinidad and Tobago, this symposium provides an opportunity for private, public, and civil society actors to exchange ideas and solutions, providing the impetus required to bring safety and security to our communities and the broader society. We are privileged to have with us this evening a remarkable lineup of speakers and panelists who bring a vast wealth of experience and expertise to this discussion. As we engage with leading experts, share groundbreaking research, and explore innovative strategies to enhance security in Trinidad and Tobago, we are grateful for your presence here this evening as you demonstrate your interest and dedication to moving the needle on this issue. Your participation certainly underscores the salience of a collective approach to addressing crime prevention and security challenges in this country and the wider Caribbean region. Importantly, this symposium would not be possible without the dedication and hard work of the organizers, the Institute of International Relations, particularly Dr. Michał Pawiński, faculty lead on this event, and the partners and sponsors to whom we offer heartfelt gratitude, particularly the Weekend Caterer, Quantum Foundation, CARICOM Impacts, the Inter-American Development Bank, the Kiss Baking Company Limited, the American Chamber of Commerce of Trinidad and Tobago, Angostura, Blue Waters Products Limited, CML Online, and Fortress Security Services Limited. It is my honor to introduce our first speaker, the Honorable Fitzgerald Hines, Minister of National Security of Trinidad and Tobago. With decades of experience in law enforcement and government, throughout his career, Minister Hines has played an instrumental role in shaping national security policies, including pivotal law enforcement and public safety legislation, such as the Kidnapping Bill, Firearms Bill, and Evidence Amendment Bill, among others. Minister Hines, we welcome you to the podium to provide remarks.
Thank you very much, Madam Master of Ceremonies, for your very kind and swift introduction. Professor Derek Chady, Deputy Campus Principal, and other members of the campus executive, of the management team of the U.W.I here at the St. Augustine Campus, Dr. Akola Lewis Cameron, Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences, Dr. Annita Montoute, heads of the regional and international organizations, Air Vice Marshal Daryl Daniel, Chief of Defense Staff, and other senior members of the protective services. In particular, let me recognize Assistant Commissioner of Police, Mr. Smith, who is Mr. Richard Smith, who is here with us, and of course, Dr. Michał Pawiński, Institute of International Relations, faculty lead of this symposium, Mr. Carlos Neptune, President of the Trinidad and Tobago Private Security Association and partner, Mr. Michael Grant, Vice President of the Tunapuna Chamber of Industry and Commerce, distinguished moderator, all panelists, valued sponsors and collaborators, representatives of the public and private sectors, staff and students here at the U.W.I, members of the media, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I am reminded of the old adage, the maxim, your head shapes your world. And there's another that I remembered sitting here this afternoon. It is said that if you win the intellectual battle, the politics, the job is easier. I am more than honored to be here at this forum with you. As Minister of National Security, at this symposium on crime prevention and reduction hosted by the Institute of International Affairs, in collaboration, of course, with the Trinidad and Tobago Private Security Association. I'm thankful for your invitation to be here and to deliver a few remarks. We share a common goal of trying to foster safer communities and more generally, a safer Trinidad and Tobago. Crime prevention, I have learned, and the reduction of criminal activity are challenges that no single person or no single entity can resolve. These are, as you as intellectuals know, far more complex, far more deep-rooted than simply that. What is required is a much more deep and resourceful look at these issues. When I studied law many years ago and did some research in the business of criminology, I would discover as a younger man then that there were literally volumes and volumes and volumes written about the causes of crime. And after reading so much of that over those years, I came to understand, as I'm sure you do, that there's no single, there's no one, there's no right answer. It's really a conglomeration of a whole lot of stuff to be done. Not merely spoken about, but to be done. Crime prevention, we have begun to view violence and crime as a public health concern, the way we view public health concerns. with the most recent example being the COVID-19 challenge that we all faced. It was in April of 2023 when the leaders of the CARICOM nations got together at the Hyatt and decided quite wisely, quite properly, to treat collectively, to treat violence, which of course results in crime, as a public health concern. That required, by way of a response, a whole of government, whole of society, whole of region, and as COVID-19 demonstrated, it required a whole of world approach, because the world made certain sacrifices, closed borders to respond to the COVID-19 challenge. The world produced vaccines, which we shared for the protection of each of us. Communities had responsibility, the churches, all of the NGOs, every arm of the government. Individuals had responsibility too, to use your masks when the law did not dictate that, to desist from shaking hands, embracing each other, and all of the personal things, spending some of your money on sanitizers, and all of the personal things we had responsibility for. It is for those reasons that I find the public health concern approach to dealing with crime so useful, because it also recognizes the need for inputs from every one of us, not the least the individual who has some responsibility in treating with these issues. As we explore today's theme, it is clear that collaboration between the public and the private sector is not just a necessity, it is an imperative. And therefore, the collaboration between the state security apparatus and the private sector security apparatus is equally critical. So in consequence of that, we observed that the role of the private security industry in Trinidad and Tobago, it has evolved significantly over the years, and its invaluable work cannot be understated, cannot be easily discounted. Today, there are approximately 50,000 private security personnel, we are told, operating in Trinidad and Tobago. At the moment, private security firms operate in accordance and largely with the Supplemental Police Act, which outlines the role of a supplemental arm of the police force, which they are regarded to be. So, in 2018, I spent some time in the office of the Attorney General as a minister there, and among the things that I did was to pull together some intellectuals, pull together some technocrats, and we designed a policy regarding the private security sector in Trinidad and Tobago. In so doing, I invited to Trinidad and Tobago the then inspector of the private security industry in the United Kingdom. He visited with us in Trinidad and Tobago. We had a number of sessions, and we began shaping and we designed this policy. I got the cabinet's approval in this regard, and then we instructed or we directed the Attorney General's department to prepare a piece of legislation which has come to be known as the Private Security Bill for the implementation of this policy in recognition of the fact that the private security industry has been playing and is expected to play a very critical role in the security management of Trinidad and Tobago. We went to Parliament with that bill. It, at the time, required a special majority. We did not get the support of our friends on the other side, one of whom is very present. Good afternoon, Professor Ramboli. We did not get the support of the Parliament for that reason. It required a special majority, and simply because this, we created under this, and I can share elements of the act later on as we proceed, we created an inspector, a private security inspector, so-called, similar to what we had seen in the United Kingdom. And among the powers that that inspector would have had would be the right to, without notice, go into business houses to inspect their books to see whether they were operating in consonance with the law, which would have taken effect. And because he had that right, our friends on the other side felt that the need for the the majority support of the House was not to be forthcoming. So we took it to a joint select committee, and as you know, in this joint select committee, we would have had independent members of the House, opposition members, members of the government, and we spent perhaps about 9 months and more churning through line by line these measures, a parliamentary procedure for better understanding and for better, well, coming to terms on common ground about matters that we dispute. And having done all of that and gotten the support of our friends and their input, it's all documented in Hansard, every line of it. So I will brook no challenge on the facts as I outlined them, my friend. We went back to the parliament as we were expected to do after that period of churning over and working over among all of us. And lo and behold, as we got back to the parliament, our friends resumed their behavior again in objection, quite frankly, and as such, we were unable to move. So we are now at the place where the bill is still on the parliamentary agenda, and we, the government, as we have been forced to do on several occasions, would take out the need for the special majority. That's the anticipation, quite frankly. And so the inspector will not be able to go to these offices and demand at any time of the night or day to examine the books to see that the operators were acting consistent with, in consonance with the law. So we have that before the parliament. And as I indicated a while ago, that was designed. Let me give you a little indication before I close. This bill, it would have established the private security authority. And that authority would have been managed by a board. We made provisions for the tenure of its members, remuneration of members, and of course, all of the functions and powers of that authority were clearly outlined in the legislation. And let me give you a little taste of some of them. These functions included to establish guidelines for the purposes of the Act, to establish standards by which the private security operators should conduct their business. It would regulate the private security industry and ensure compliance with the Act, the guidelines, and the standards. It would be able to issue, revoke, suspend, cancel, and vary the licenses, because we had decided to professionalize the private security industry after certain levels of training and observation of the standards. Then you would have earned yourself a license for the different categories of operators in the field, and therefore the authority would issue these licenses. They would be able to revoke them and that kind of thing. The authority also had one of its functions was to establish training and practical standards for the certification of security officers and special security officers, to establish and maintain a register of all licensees, publish and approve list of courses and institutions for the provision of training. It was to include to conduct character and background investigations in relation to applicants for licenses, and it could appoint a committee to hear and determine complaints from the public in relation to the private security industry and complaints from officers against their employers, because one of the things that we identified as we were developing the policy is that many of these private security officers had serious issues, sometimes with uniforms, equipment, terms and conditions. All of these things would have fallen within the purview of this authority. And of course, reflecting on the need for the special majority, if, for example, the inspector or inspectorate found that some company on the basis of a complaint was not operating in accordance with the law. Just by way of a small example, some of the persons working were not so registered or licensed, then the inspector would have had the right at any hour of the day or night to go in there, see who is on the job, and check the registers to see whether that person was duly trained, licensed, and registered. We didn't find the favor of those in the House, and therefore we couldn't go further, and we are now taking steps, as I indicated, to addressing that. I don't want to be much longer, but I do understand from my observation of what is happening in the world that the private security sector is very, very critical. The state just cannot be everywhere and do it all, and therefore our history shows, common sense suggests very firmly that the private security sector has played, is playing, and is expected to continue to play a very critical part in all of this. One of the things we observed as we looked at international practices in Israel, well, their circumstances is obviously very different to ours. But in Israel, I recall just very briefly as I'm coming to a close, when I returned to Trinidad and Tobago in 1994, very shortly after arriving here from London, having spent 7 years there, I went into a drugstore in the Pittsburgh area. And that was the first time now I'm seeing a female security officer armed in a very small drugstore. And that told me a whole lot about the state that we had come to post my leaving Trinidad in 1987 as a former police officer. I'd never seen a scene like that before. I recall distinctly it was a Sunday evening, and this female is inside of this drugstore, a small drugstore in Pittsburgh, armed with a firearm. So that told me a little bit. But when we looked around, we saw, for example, a state like Israel, where I would learn that the training that a private security officer gets in that country is very, very closely aligned to which a police officer or even a soldier gets. It's so thorough, so robust in that country that the very same firearm type and training that a soldier or a police officer undergoes, the private security officer is made to undergo that. They operate, and this is from conversation with some of the personnel operating there, they operate on what they call the single fighter model, and that is to suggest if you go in any rural district, anywhere, and you encounter a private security officer, you are actually meeting a man or a woman who is trained almost at the level of the soldier or the police officer. And therefore, that indicated to me the intensity, the seriousness, the focus they place on the private security industry in the context of Israel, you would say for obvious reasons. But Trinidad and Tobago is severely challenged by crime. Many of our citizens, including private security officers, including police officers, defense force personnel, have been made to perish at the hands of criminals. And therefore, we consider collaboration between the private security industry and the state sector to be very critical. We consider it sufficiently serious to have legislated and to have regulated the private security industry with a more professionalized, better equipped, better trained private security sector, marrying the pool of their experience and capacities with that of the state, we believed, and we still believe, that that would present Trinidad and Tobago with a better blanket, a better response to the criminality that we are all experiencing today. I should close on that and stand ready for any further comments as we proceed. Thank you.
Thank you for your compelling and decisive insight, Minister Hines. You've certainly set the tone of urgency for finding solutions between the private and public sector to the scourge of crime in Trinidad and Tobago. We now welcome to the podium our next speaker to deliver opening remarks, Professor Derek Chady, Deputy Principal of the U.W.I St. Augustine Campus. Professor Chady is also a member of the Mediation Board of Trinidad and Tobago and a published author whose research focuses on the psychology of the fear of crime. Professor Chady, we invite you to the podium.
Thank you very much, Chair. A pleasant good afternoon to everyone. The Honorable Fitzgerald Hines, Minister of National Security of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, members of the Diplomatic Corps, other members of Parliament, members of the U.W.I senior management, Dr. Kola Lewis Cameron, Dean, Faculty of Social Sciences, Dr. Annita Montoute, Acting Director, IIR, heads of regional and international organization, A Vice Marshal Darrell Daniel, Chief of Defense Staff, Dr. Michał Pawiński, Institute of International Relations and faculty lead of this symposium, Mr. Carlos Neptune, President of the Trinidad and Tobago Private Security Association, Mr. Michael Grant, Vice President of the Tunapuna Chamber of Industry and Commerce, distinguished moderator and panelist, valued sponsors and collaborators, representatives of the public and private sector, staff and members of the U.W.I St. Augustine Campus, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, once again, a very pleasant good evening. It is my pleasure to welcome everyone to the St. Augustine Campus for this critically important symposium towards improved public security, crime prevention, and reduction through the lenses of the private security industry and law enforcement agencies in Trinidad and Tobago. The issue of crime in Trinidad and Tobago is not just a persistent challenge. It is an evolving crisis. We are witnessing increasingly sophisticated criminal activities, rising incidents of extortion, and a pervasive sense of fear that threatens the very fabric of our society. Where we are today is clear, but equally clear is where we need to be. A nation where every citizen can live, work, and prosper without the looming threat of crime. Security should not be a privilege for a few. It must be a fundamental reality and right for all. The present question before us is, how do we bridge the gap between where we are and where we need to be? As we convene this evening, we recognize a crucial truth. Public safety is a shared responsibility. While law enforcement agencies and private security firms play distinct roles, crime impacts every facet of our lives, our safety, economic stability, and national development. It is not merely a policing issue or private security concern. It is a national imperative that demands a coordinated, strategic, and unified response. A fragmented approach will not suffice. To be effective, we must embrace the triple helix, an approach of collaboration, that integrates the private sector, which relies on a stable and secure environment for economic growth, public agencies mandated to uphold law and order, the university, where rigorous research, innovation can drive evidence-based solutions to public sector and public security challenges, as well as also civil society, engaging communities in crime prevention efforts and building trust between law enforcement and communities. This approach is not just aspirational, it is essential for dismantling the entrenched culture of crime that continues to undermine our society. However, collaboration must go beyond surface level engagements or symbolic partnerships. We cannot afford temporary fixes, reactive measures, or solutions that prioritize short term political gains over sustainable impact. The time has come for structured, strategic, and deliberate action. And I stress that deliberate action. To achieve real change, we must consider tackling the root causes of crime. And Minister made this point very clear, not just the symptoms. Invest in long-term interventions, particularly for vulnerable youths, by promoting education, mentorship, and value-driven community programs. Developed a structured framework where law enforcement, private security, business, university, and communities collaborate seamlessly and not in silos. Dialogue alone is not enough. We must translate our discussions into concrete, actionable strategies. This means this means going beyond bureaucracy, avoiding policy stagnation, and implementing solutions that are efficient, result-driven, and transformative. As we engage in today's discussion, let us be bold in our vision, decisive in our strategies, and unwavering in our commitment. The path forward will not be easy, but it's necessary. Our collective security depends on the strength of our partnership, the clarity of our strategies, and our willingness to act with urgency. I extend my gratitude to Dr. Montoute and her team at IIR, the Private Security Association, and the Greater Tunapuna Chamber of Industry and Commerce for organizing this very timely and essential symposium. I look forward to the insightful exchanges that will take place today and more importantly, to the actions that will follow. Let us leave here not just with ideas, but with a renewed sense of purpose and a commitment to building a safer Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your most erudite perspective on the issue at hand, Professor Chady. We now welcome Mr. Carlos Neptune, CEO of Fortress Security Services Limited and co-founder of the Caribbean Association of Security Professionals. Mr. Neptune is also the president of the Trinidad and Tobago Private Security Association, the TTPSA, a partner organization of this event. With over 30 years of expertise, Mr. Neptune is a seasoned security professional and a driving force in improving security industry standards in the Caribbean region. Mr. Neptune, we now invite you to the podium to deliver remarks.
The Honorable Fitzgerald Hines, Minister of National Security, I want to ask your permission to observe all other protocols. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, my name is Carlos Neptune, President of the Trinidad and Tobago Private Security Association. We call it TTPSA. The TTPSA was founded to raise and improve the quality of service and public perception of the security industry by promoting industry growth and providing information, education, training, improved standard, legislative and governing agency advocacy, societal benefit, and personal development. It is with great pleasure that we gather here today to discuss the crucial theme of enhancing collaborative security through the integration of the private security sector with law enforcement agencies in Trinidad and Tobago. This symposium serves as a platform for insightful dialogue, knowledge sharing, and collaborative problem solving, all aimed at fostering a safer and more secure environment for the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. The significance of this symposium cannot be overstated. In today's dynamic and ever-evolving security landscape, the need for effective collaboration between the private security sector and law enforcement agency is paramount. By bringing together key stakeholders from both sectors, we aim to collectively address challenges, explore opportunity, and develop strategies that will enhance overall security and safety in Trinidad and Tobago. Research plays a critical role in informing policies, practices, and decision-making and processes within the security sector. The research presented and discussed today not only shed light, I should say the historic research, not only shed light on the current state of security in Trinidad and Tobago, but also offers valuable insight into the potential benefit of integrating the private security sector with law enforcement agency. By grounding our discussion in research-based evidence, we can ensure that our actions are informed, effective, and sustainable. The collaboration between the University of the West Indies and the Trinidad and Tobago Private Security Association is instrumental in catalyzing positive change within the security landscape of Trinidad and Tobago. By leveraging the academic expertise of the university and the practical experience of the TTPSA, we have a unique opportunity to bridge the gap between theory, practice, academia, and industry. This partnership exemplifies the spirit of collaborations and innovation that is essential in addressing complex security challenges. Ladies and gentlemen, that's my remarks for the time being. I thank you.
Many thanks for your authoritative and cogent contribution, Mr. Neptune. You've certainly offered in-depth insight into the benefits of a collaborative approach to crime prevention. It is now my pleasure to introduce Mr. Michael Grant. Mr. Grant is the General Manager of National Shoe and Occupational Solutions Limited, or NATCO, and the Vice President of the Greater Tunapuna Chamber of Industry and Commerce, GTCIC, a partner organization of this event. Mr. Grant, I'm pleased to welcome you to the podium.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Good evening. Honorable Minister of National Security, Fitzgerald Hines, the U.W.I Institute of International Relations, business leaders, and all others assembled here today, all protocols observed. I stand before you today as a representative of the Greater Tunapuna Chamber of Industry and Commerce, GTCIC, to speak on an issue that is critical to the well-being of our society: public security of Trinidad and Tobago. It is an issue that affects every citizen, every community, and every aspect of our daily lives. Whether we are at home, at work, or out on the streets, the safety of our people is fundamental to ensuring that we continue to live in peace and prosperity. Today we delve into an important conversation: crime prevention and reduction through the lenses of the private security industry and law enforcement agencies. This dialogue is not just about addressing crime, but about understanding the intricate relationship between various sectors and how we can collaborate to create a safer society. And just to interject my speech, there are some common terms that I listened to from the speakers that came before me. The Honorable Fitzgerald Hines spoke about crime not being the responsibility of one person or one institution. Dr. Chedi spoke about the shared responsibility, and the esteemed Mr. Neptune spoke about collaboration. So to speak about understanding the challenge, Trinidad and Tobago, like many nations, faces challenges with crime that have far-reaching consequences. From petty theft to violent crimes, the impact on our citizens is felt every day. The statistics are alarming, but what is more troubling is the fear that permeates our communities. Fear for our lives, for our property, for our children. It is this fear that we must address through concrete actions, policies, and effective partnerships. We must recognize that crime is not solely a policing issue. It is a social issue, one that requires a multifaceted approach. And this is where both the private security industry and law enforcement agencies come into play. Let's look at the role of the private security industry. The private security industry in Trinidad and Tobago has grown significantly over the past few decades. Today, private security companies are integral parts of our national security infrastructure. I think I heard the Honorable Fitzgerald Hines said we have 50,000 security personnel approximately. With specialized training, technological tools, and a heightened presence, private security personnel work tirelessly to ensure the safety of individuals, businesses, and communities. Private security is crucial in areas that are often too vast for law enforcement to cover effectively. Security officers monitor and protect residential areas, shopping centers, banks, schools, and even critical infrastructure such as power plants. Their role is preventative, helping to deter criminal activity before it happens. Their vigilance, their patrols, and their direct engagement with the public make them a strong first line of defense against crime. Furthermore, the collaboration between private security companies and law enforcement is essential. Sharing information, coordinating efforts, and even providing intelligence to law enforcement agencies can lead to the early detection of criminal activities and the swift apprehension of offenders. Further, private security personnel also play a critical role in emergency responses. Whether it is the timely response to an alarm or providing immediate support during a criminal event, they provide crucial assistance to law enforcement when every second counts. In essence, the private security industry complements the work of the police and provides an additional layer of protection to our society. let's touch a little bit about the role of the law enforcement agencies. On the other side of this equation, we have our law enforcement agencies. The police, as the primary agency responsible for law enforcement, must be equipped with the tools, training, and manpower to effectively combat crime. However, even with the best efforts of the police, the sheer scale and complexity of modern-day crime demand a broader approach that extends beyond their immediate jurisdiction and resources. The police cannot operate in a vacuum. The reality is that crime does not respect jurisdictional boundaries. It crosses borders, communities, and sectors. This is why effective collaboration between law enforcement agencies and the private security industry is not just important, it is essential. Our law enforcement agencies must focus on intelligence-led policing, where they use the data gathered from various sources, including private security firms, to prioritize crime hotspots, investigate patterns, and carry out strategic operations. When public security agencies like the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service work closely with private security, there's a shared understanding of threats, trends, and emerging criminal tactics. We in the Greater Tunapuna Chamber, we could speak about U.W.I, and I'm happy to recognize the founder of U.W.I, Mr. Neil Burusing, is in the audience. And the collaboration that has taken place continues to take place between the Tunapuna Police and U.W.I in terms of, so that the end result is that there's a reduction of crime, earlier work by the police in terms of apprehending criminals, etc. However, the investment of technology by both sectors cannot be understated, as we have seen from our U.W.I CCTV infrastructure that we have developed and championed in the Greater Tunapuna area that has reduced petty theft, criminal activity in our areas. Technology has to play a key role in crime detection and prevention. Collaborative use of technology will enable both private security and law enforcement agencies to work together more effectively, ensuring that no area is left unmonitored and no criminal is left unnoticed. In conclusion, we speak about building stronger partnerships. To improve public security, we must foster stronger partnerships between the private sector, law enforcement agencies, government institutions. The key to success lies in effective collaboration, coordination, and communication. The GTCIC stand committed to encouraging dialogue between stakeholders, facilitating joint initiatives, and working together towards a common goal, reducing crime and enhancing the safety and security of every citizen of Trinidad and Tobago. One of the most significant steps forward, is creating a national crime prevention strategy that outlines specific rules for both private security companies and law enforcement agencies. This strategy should promote regular communication, joint training exercises, shared access to resources, which will enhance operational attractiveness, effectiveness, and allow for a more unified approach to crime prevention. Additionally, the private security industry can assist in providing community-based initiatives, such as neighborhood watch programs, public awareness campaigns, and crime reduction workshops. These programs can empower communities to take ownership of their safety and collaborate with both private security and law enforcement officers to create safer environments. And my final words is a call to action. In conclusion, improving public security in Trinidad and Tobago is not the responsibility of one sector alone. It is a collective effort where the private security and law enforcement agencies must work together in a cohesive and coordinated manner. It is time to embrace the power of partnerships, innovation, and shared responsibility. Through collaboration, technology, and community involvement, we can make significant strides towards a safer Trinidad and Tobago for all citizens. Let us work together to ensure that our country remains a place where families, businesses, and communities can thrive without fear. Let us take bold steps forward and build a secure future for the next generation. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. You've provided much needed food for thought as we delve into the complexities of public security in Trinidad and Tobago. Our final presenter of opening remarks this evening is Dr. Annita Montoute, Acting Director of the Institute of International Relations at the University of the West Indies. It is my distinct privilege to introduce Dr. Montoute, both as Acting Head of the IIR and co-researcher on the Private Security Project. We look forward to your remarks, Dr. Montoute. Please take the podium.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Honorable Fitzgerald Hines, Minister of National Security of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, members of the Diplomatic Corps, members of Parliament, Professor Derek Chady, Deputy Campus Principal, and other members of the Campus Executive Management Team of the U.W.I St. Augustine Campus, Dr. Kola Lewis Cameron, Dean, Faculty of Social Sciences, the U.W.I St. Augustine Campus, heads of regional and international organizations, Air Vice Marshal Daryl Daniel, Chief of Defense Staff, and other senior members of the Protective Service of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Michał Pawiński, Institute of International Relations Faculty Lead of this symposium, Mr. Carlos Neptune, President of the Trinidad and Tobago Private Security Association and partner, Mr. Michael Grant, Vice President of the Tunapuna Chamber of Industry and Commerce and partner of this symposium, distinguished moderator and panelists, valued sponsors and collaborators, representatives of the public and private sectors, staff and students of the U.W.I St. Augustine Campus, members of the media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Please permit me in my opening remarks to focus on the larger work of the Institute of International Relations to locate this particular symposium. I'm definitely going to deal a little bit with the topic at hand, but I want to locate it in a broader context. So it is really an honor and privilege to bring remarks and greetings from the Institute of International Relations at the U.W.I St. Augustine Campus at this important discussion forum towards improved public security, crime prevention and reduction through the lens of private security industry and law enforcement agencies in Trinidad and Tobago, which is based on the empirical research of the faculty of the Institute. In keeping with the Institute's mandate, we host various kinds of events intended to promote discussion and exchange of ideas on a range of issues of relevance to the international relations of the Caribbean and regional development. The diversity of issues on which we engage highlights, among many things, the multidisciplinary nature of our work and our ability to bridge the gap between theory, policy, and practice. Importantly, these exercises promote public presence, generate knowledge, and advance the policy relevance of our work. The IIRs sometimes execute these events collaboratively with both individuals and organizations. For the latter, they include universities, private sector agencies, research and policy bodies, national and regional governmental and non-governmental organizations, including civil society. Today, we are pleased to be hosting this event in partnership with private security and the business sectors and with the support of a wide range of other actors. This initiative speaks to the policy relevance of our research agenda for meeting the pressing needs of the country and the region. The Institute of International Relations and the Diplomatic Academy of the Caribbean have conducted and have engaged in research and professional training on issues such as the climate resilience and adaptation issues, global financial regulation, protocol and diplomacy, climate negotiations, energy diplomacy, small island developing states navigating the global climate change arena, the migration crime nexus, China-Caribbean relations, churches as bottom-up drivers of regional integration, national, regional, and international security issues, among many others. The IIR's public outreach through its public policy dialogues has emerged as one of its distinguishing marks in recent times. In the last 2 years, the Institute hosted 43 such events on a wide range of topics of relevance to global and international, regional and international issues, including taking stock of CARICOM's achievements after 50 years, implications of artificial intelligence for the Caribbean, the crisis in Haiti, the fourth Small Island Developing States Conference, and the conflict in the Middle East, Guyana and Venezuela controversy, the role of the CARICOM single market and economy, the impact of the Association of Caribbean States after 30 years of existence, Caribbean business focus on Africa, Latin American relations, and the list goes on and on and on. Today, we are happy that we are engaging on the issue of insecurity, which we are all grappling with and seeking to find sustainable solutions. Both the proliferation of private security companies and the crime they seek to address are directly related to matters of international relations. Globalizing forces, directly and indirectly, have driven the growth of the private security sector. This includes the provision of private security services by multinational firms across the world, which themselves have been driven by patterns of service liberalization, technological innovation, and security threats that have exploded in their nature, extent, and diversity. But this growth would not have been possible without the increase in insecurity in the jurisdictions that private security companies operate. The increase in violent crime is known to be fueled in great measure by transnational crime, namely trans-border illicit activities, cybercrime, drugs, weapons, and human trafficking across borders, all of which are concerns of international relations as they are the preoccupation of states and non-state actors alike. We hope that this event today will shed some light and provide hope on the possibility of new or revised approaches to address crime and enhance the security of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago and the wider region. I thank you.
Thank you for setting the context and stage for the panel discussion which will follow, Dr. Montoute. Given that this symposium is grounded on research conducted by yourself and Dr. Pawiński, your presentation perfectly sets up the foundational academic ethos for this event. We now move into our most highly anticipated segment of the evening, the presentation of research findings. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce our presentation segment facilitator and moderator for the question and answer segment to follow, Ms. Alana Wheeler. Hailing from Trinidad and Tobago, Ms. Wheeler is a foreign Fulbright scholar, national security expert, and advocate for women and girls. With a career spanning over 25 years, Ms. Wheeler has worked with Transparency International, CARICOM, and the UN. As the head of Trinidad and Tobago's counter-trafficking unit for 9 years, she secured over $4 million USD in funding, trained 2,000 plus stakeholders globally, and made significant advances in anti-trafficking efforts. Ms. Wheeler, I am pleased to invite you to take the floor.
Good evening, and thank you, Crystal, for that lovely introduction. I'm going to ask the panelists to please join me on stage, and I'll introduce. We have Mr. Nirad Tiwari from the American Chamber of Commerce, Assistant Commissioner of Police Richard Smith from the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, Mr. Carlos Neptune from the Trinidad and Tobago Private Security Association, and Mr. Calixtus Joseph from CARICOM Impacts. I was thinking and I was saying, gosh, this is a hot topic, but it's actually very cold in here. Okay, so I'm really honored to be part of this event by the Institute of International Relations. I'm happy to see some of one of my past bosses, the Minister of National Security, the Honorable Fitzgerald Hines, and I'm happy to see some of our other parliamentarians as a part of the forum here. So we welcome you again this evening. So we have some dynamic speakers on the panel, and these are our subject matter experts in the area of private security and also law enforcement. So we've heard some of the theory, we've had the research, and now we're going to hear from the practitioners. But it is said that data drives policy. So I just wanted to throw out some data to you, just on some crime and violence. And you see that one of our sponsors for the program is the Inter-American Development Bank. So I decided to borrow some data from the IDB. They published a report last year actually on crime and violence, and they published some very interesting information. This is not to put any pressure on our panelists at all, but I think it's really to give us an idea of what the context of crime and violence is that we're dealing with, not just in Trinidad and Tobago, but in the entire Caribbean region. So when we speak about crime and violence, we speak about crimes against the person, property, public order, violent acts, and these can be both psychological and physical. So the research that was conducted by the IDB, they actually looked at 22 countries in the Latin American and the Caribbean region, and we have about 33 in the region. 5 of those countries were CARICOM countries, including Trinidad and Tobago. And that data shows that 3.8% of the GDP in the Caribbean is committed to crime and violence costs. And the highest GDP in the Latin American Caribbean region is from our region. So we spend more money basically on fighting crime and violence than South America, than Central America, right? And so this actually amounts to about 78% of the education budget in any one country. So public security is actually the most serious issue in the Caribbean region. And when we look at Latin American and Caribbean region, we actually have the highest homicide rates in the entire world, higher than the African region. And over the past 10 years, the Caribbean has increased by 20% in our homicide rates. So let's look at this not just Trinidad and Tobago, but globally and also regionally. And when we're talking about cost, the cost, how much does crime cost? We're looking at private costs, public costs, and even the human capital costs, which is the cost, for example, loss of life, loss of earnings, the public health costs that the minister mentioned earlier. All these are costs that accrue when it comes to fighting crime and violence. So in our panel this evening, because I certainly know you're not here to listen to me, so we will discuss some practical recommendations to assist in the prevention, response to, and the reduction of crime and violence. So how we're going to do it is each panelist has 10 minutes. They can take less, of course. 10 minutes to present their topic. And while the panelists are presenting, we invite the audience to please write your questions on a paper. We're going to have the ushers distributing paper, pens, and please submit your questions to the ushers. And then we will take questions at the ending of all of the panelists' presentation. This is to save us time because, as you can see, it's getting later. And we know, persons have other things to do. So we're asking please to start to write your questions before we get to the ending for the Q&A section. So our first panelist, our first presenter is going to be Mr. Calixtus Joseph of CARICOM Impacts. But Mr. Joseph, I just wanted to put this at you. We know Impacts has done some work on this, right? The public-private partnership. We know there have been meetings, there have been discussions, there's been the International Code of Conduct, the Montreux document, and you're going to speak about that. But really, what are some of the pros and cons for implementing such a strategic alliance? We've heard that it's been done. We've heard that there's a bill that's drafted for Trinidad and Tobago. But at the CARICOM level, Mr. Joseph, can you share with us what has been happening, what has been working, what has not been working? Mr. Joseph?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Firstly, allow me to recognize some distinguished personnel here. Honorable Minister, welcome. See the Vice Principal here and also my good friend, Annita. Distinguished delegates, excellencies, it's a pleasure and honor to be here. Security is the bedrock of stability and prosperity. Security is the foundation upon which our societies thrive. Without security, businesses collapse, tourism withers, and investment disappears. Without security, our citizens live in fear. Our economies falter, and the rule of law is eroded. Governments across the region have long been the principal architect of national security, but the private security sector has emerged as an indispensable partner. No longer merely a supplementary force, private security has become integral to our collective security and safety. However, with the rapid expansion comes an urgent need for regulations, oversight, and accountability. As we deliberate on the role of private security in Trinidad and Tobago, and I have been requested to speak more on the Caribbean, so it is instructive to examine the experiences of our Caribbean states, the best practices of other regions, including the European Union, and to see what is happening there in this sector. Their journeys could offer us great, valuable insights into the necessary aspects of private security. Now, most of the literature on private security refers to issues of more private military companies, what we do not have in this region. In fact, my colleague just spoke about the Montreux Doctrine. And if you read through the Montreux Doctrine speaks to regulation of, but mainly private military industry. So I'm very thankful for this symposium today, which brings great focus to the issues and the peculiarities of this region, and those peculiarities of the type of private securities we have in this region. Like many regions worldwide, the Caribbean has witnessed an exponential growth in private security firms. The private security industry ought not to be perceived as an auxiliary component of our security landscape. It must be a critical pillar of national and regional security policy. In many jurisdictions, private security personnel now outnumber police officers. In most Caribbean countries, you have more private security personnel than you have persons in terms of public security. And the presenters before me outlined the number of critical functions which they function in, whether it's at ports, airports, government buildings. Yet, we must confront a harsh reality. Are private security personnel adequately trained? Are they held to uniform standards of accountability? Can we ensure that those tasked with protecting lives and assets operate with the highest level of integrity and professionalism? The minister noted that in Trinidad alone, there are 50,000 private security personnel. In fact, in the region, there are more than 100,000 private security personnel, and perhaps more than 1,000 private security companies. Now, this growth has been fueled by several factors. The rise of mass private properties, including whether it's hotels, commercial centers, gated communities. The distinguished director of IR spoke about the issue of violent crime. The growth has been influenced by violent crime also, or not just violent crime, the perception of crime. Just you thinking of crime is there. We'll say, okay, let me get some cameras, let me get somebody to pass around. The protection of extractive industries and critical infrastructure. I know most of my friends here from the private security industry, which own companies. I am sure most of them have a company in Guyana now. You know what's happening in Guyana. So in terms of protecting those industries. So usually when there are extractive industries or any rush of extractive industries, you'd see a plethora of private industries being, private companies and private security companies being there. The rapid technological evolution of security services and the capacity constraints of law enforcement, leading to a growing reliance on private security. And yet, despite its size and significance, the private security industry in the Caribbean operates under a fragmented and inconsistent regulatory framework. While some states, such as Jamaica, through its Private Security Regulation Authority, have instituted strict licensing and training protocols, others lack the fundamental safeguards needed to ensure professionalism and accountability. An example, working for CARICOM, one thing you know, you never mention any state name. First rule. But Jamaica did good, so I could mention Jamaica's name. In many countries, when you examine the legislation of private security, what you get, or you could look at private security from limited to comprehensive wide legislation. Let me give you a quick synopsis. From limited could be just the company is licensed. Comprehensive regulation would look at licensing both the company and employees. So you see a big difference. So in many countries, private security companies are simply treated like an ordinary business. So think about that. Private security, some companies that basically have arms are treated as a simple business. And opening that private security business could simply be about having just a certain amount of money, and that's all. So we must move towards comprehensive legislation. So what does this mean for us? It means private security officers are sometimes employed without thorough background checks. Some companies prioritize profit over professionalism, cutting corners on training and safety. Law enforcement agencies often operate in isolation from private security rather than forging strategic partnership to combat crime. In fact, a few years ago, a study was made on private security in the Caribbean. When senior police officers were asked, okay, what do you think about private security companies? The synopsis is, and the answer is, they work for us, not they work with us. So you see the perception from law enforcement. So that's one perception from some law enforcement. So we need to change that mentality in terms of working together. So what is the consequences? The absence of uniform licensing, background checks, and training standards has created low barriers to entry, allowing individuals with questionable characters and backgrounds to assume positions in private security companies. The consequence, a security sector vulnerable to corruption and exploitation, a deepening divide between public law enforcement and private security, a diminished sense of public trust in security services. So, private security should not be seen as mere supplementary or supplement to law enforcement, but as a central player in the security ecosystem. Security is not the sole responsibility of the state. And the minister, you know, when you see the minister on TV, he often will remind us, security is all of our business. It cannot just be the state. It is a shared responsibility. Law enforcement cannot be everywhere at once, but private security officers are already embedded within our communities, businesses, and transport networks. Why then are they not fully integrated into our national security strategies? For too long, private security officers have been treated as second-class citizens in the security ecosystem, underpaid, undervalued, and undertrained. This must change. A professionalized security sector means fair wages and structured employment policies, opportunities for career advancement and continuous training, respect and recognition as key players in national security. A well-trained and motivated security workforce is not just good for business. It is a strategic advantage in the fight against crime. If we continue to neglect the conditions of private security personnel, we will cultivate an industry where desperation trumps duty and security officers become vulnerable to bribery, intimidation, and infiltration. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm usually a very optimistic person. Sorry for showing you so much despair and being in such a somber mood today. But I am not being in a somber mood, okay? It's a call for action. We have an unprecedented opportunity to reshape, reform, and regulate the private security industry to ensure that it becomes a force for good, a pillar of integrity, professionalism, and public trust. A robust framework must include a dedicated regulatory authority, and the minister spoke to this, with enforcement mechanisms, powers of inspection, investigation, and audits, uniform licensing and background checks to eliminate criminal infiltration, mandatory training and certification to reinforce ethical conduct and competencies, standard wages, and I'll repeat that, standard wages and employment policies. Many private security guards work more than 14 hours. They have to do it because they have to feed their families. Those are the realities we are dealing with. And if we do not change those realities, the private security will not be a professional security entity. Integration of private security into national crime prevention strategies, fostering collaboration with law enforcement for better intelligence sharing, crime deterrence, and rapid response capabilities. As we move forward, we must foster stronger partnership between law enforcement, particularly the police, and the private security industry to maximize our collective capacity to fight crime. We must elevate standards of employment, training, and ethical conduct to ensure the private security sector is a responsible partner in national security. Unless we elevate those standards, the law enforcement will not see private security on that path. They will still see they work for us, not with us. The future of security in the Caribbean is not about division. It is about unity, professionalism, and collaboration. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Joseph. Two things you mentioned, and I'm looking at Mr. Farouk Mohammed in the audience, who is from the Labor Inspectorate Unit. And you mentioned about security officers being underpaid and their working hours. So we don't want Mr. Farouk now. He's going to have to go and look into all these security firms that have been, we won't say exploiting, but not really maximizing the use of their workers or treating them well. So thank you again, Mr. Joseph. We still do want to hear in terms of what has happened in the region, what has happened, what has worked, what has not worked, because we know we have a draft bill in Trinidad and Tobago that is before the authorities. But we'd want to know what is the practical aspects of really working this. How is this going to work? Can it work? So we're moving on to Mr. Nirad Tiwari, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the American Chamber of Commerce of Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Tiwari, I wanted to put to you, he said he wanted to have a discussion. So again, we open it for persons to pose questions, write them on a piece of paper, send them to the ushers so that we can really expedite the Q&A section. Mr. Tiwari, I wanted to put to you some things. Caribbean's small and medium-sized enterprises, they contribute 60 to 70% of the GDP in their economies, right? And there's data that shows 1 in 4 private companies report losses from theft, robbery, vandalism, and arson. That's from the IDB report. And also from the crime and violence costs, the private sector costs are actually higher than the public sector costs in combating crime and violence. So, Mr. Tiwari, we would want you to share with us on strengthening public-private security partnerships in Trinidad and Tobago. Can this work? And what are your views on it from a private sector perspective?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Minister of National Security, the Honorable Fitzgerald Hines, and all other dignitaries. Pleasant good evening to you all. I want to thank Dr. Pawiński and Dr. Montoute for having me here. It's always humbling to be invited by an institution at which you were once a student to participate in a forum such as this. I think this is a really complex issue, as is anything that we've been facing. And I find when we have these discussions, we localize them and we put them in silos. I think that the speakers who have gone before me have offered excellent and practical suggestions. I am not from the security industry, and I'm sure Mr. Neptune will respond to Mr. Joseph appropriately. I see my friend Darren Carmichael up there, and he probably is much more, he has much more expertise than me in this. What I would say is that the only reason that we as citizens in any country give up some of our rights to whatever is the government is for security. That is the primary reason for which we give up rights. And that is the minimum which we should expect as citizens of any state. And so we have a crisis at the moment. And we have to work together to get out of it. And we have to understand how things are interconnected. I have been a representative of the private sector in 2 institutions for the last 15 plus years. And I will say, without fear of contradiction, 2 things. One is that the private sector is deeply committed to Trinidad and Tobago and willing to work on anything that will assist in making our society better, including security in various ways, both in hard and soft ways. The second is that the private sector in Trinidad and Tobago, according to many studies, is more generous in terms of CSR initiatives than the global average. And so, therefore, the private sector is willing to put their money where their mouth is when they think it makes sense. And therefore, respectfully, I think we need to believe and to understand what the plan is, what the macro plan is, and how we can fit into that to assist. And on the periphery, things are being done, but I think there's a lot more room for collaboration. And I think from our perspective, there can be greater willingness to receive the collaboration. In other words, we are begging to help more. Tell us how and how that help is going to be tributaries into streams and streams into rivers and rivers into seas to find solutions. And we will. We will. In so doing, we have to chew chewing gum, we have to walk, and we have to carry things, meaning we have to deal with the immediate crisis. We must. But we must also put in place more and more strategies to deal with the medium and long term. But we also can't behave as though nothing is being done. So I would say the Adopt a School program, for example, is one that I talk about all the time, because I think it is the school is at the core of solving our crime issues. If we can fix the schools and work with students and their families where we catch them, we can make a difference in a shorter time than we think, but let's call it a 10-year horizon. And immediately we have the work that ACP Smith and his colleagues are doing. In terms of the specific question about how does the private security industry work with the police, everybody who knows me knows that I speak my mind and sometimes I'm a bit controversial. But I think our goal should be to reduce the need, reduce the amount of private security and police officers that we have in Trinidad and Tobago. Because we want to reduce crime. Because we want to have a safer society. Now, that doesn't mean that the businesses will go away or the businesses can't be more profitable. Of course, I'm here as AmCham. We want businesses to be profitable and thrive, but not at the expense of the society. And therefore, if that is our goal, then we have to work on those things that will do that. And in the immediate term, Mr. Joseph spoke about aspects of private security that we don't currently employ in Trinidad and Tobago. But we have a problem, and our law enforcement agencies appear to need some help. What if we were to employ, within the bounds of the law, possibly through international agreements, private security arrangements to put dedicated, highly trained teams of private security officers to augment the national security apparatus within the bounds of the law? And it's been done before, where officers from outside of Trinidad and Tobago have been granted SRP status to supplement the work of the police and assist the national security services to deal with the immediate problem and put a squeeze on the gangs and the criminal activity as we seek to make Trinidad and Tobago safer. The times that we're in call for thinking outside of the box. And I would say my members and I personally are quite involved in the soft aspects of crime reduction. We need some breathing room as we deal with what we are faced with today. You all would have seen that AmCham Trinidad and Tobago supported the state of emergency as a means of providing that breathing room and signaling that we are all in this together and will do what we need to do to reduce crime. But we need to continue to find innovative and different solutions. 3 very specific things that I would suggest is in collaboration, for collaboration between the TTPS in particular and the private security industry is more regular, it could be regional and then national interactions, similar to what the US embassies do in the various countries that they operate in. They call them you would know, the OSACs, where you have just dialogue, where you share information so that you can have close to real-time sharing of information and using that information for planning purposes between the private security agencies. And I would extend that to aspects of to businesses that may be larger operators in the various areas and representatives of the smaller businesses, the chambers, the regional chambers, so that we can share the information and plan our anti-crime prevention, ideally, strategies. I mean, as I said, we can't pretend that things are not being done. The Eagle Eye program that you mentioned is a great program, and there are various communities in Trinidad and Tobago that with greater success, some more than others, have been sharing footage and putting in place mechanisms to collaborate with the TTPS. I think that can be expanded. And also I think there might be a willingness, and Mr. Neptune, I don't want to speak for your members, but certainly for among some companies that I've spoken to find a framework that would allow the TTPS to access information, not just video footage, but information from private security companies who are operating in an area where crimes have taken place. That's more reactive. And of course, sorting out and making more efficient the process to receive certificates of character, and the FUECs for officers would go a long way to dealing with proper screening on the one hand, and then making sure that officers are properly equipped in the private security agencies. So I will stop there, and I thank you again for the time and for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Tiwari. So we're going to segue. I don't know if we want Mr. Neptune to go before ACP Smith based on what Mr. Tiwari has shared. Because of what Mr. Tiwari has shared in light of the private security officers, I just actually wanted to mention that in the year 2010, the Ministry of National Security actually started what you call a Private Security Network Commission. And I know Mr. Neptune will probably mention it in his sharing. And that was an attempt to try to marry the two, where they actually had more than 20,000 private security officers that were working alongside the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, but they worked as additional eyes and ears to transmit relevant information to law enforcement. So this might have been before, I think before some of our times here, but this is something that I do recall from the year 2010. It would have been under a previous administration, and it seemed to have worked well. So I'm just going to ask Mr. Neptune, Carlos Neptune, well, you were already introduced to him, and he's going to talk about some of the recent developments in the private security sector and how this can be integrated with law enforcement agencies. Mr. Neptune?
Thank you. Protocol again observed. In an era where crime is becoming increasingly sophisticated, the role of private security companies has never been more critical. We are not just the eyes and the ears on the ground. We are an integral part of the broader security ecosystem, projected to work hand in hand with law enforcement agencies to ensure safety and security of our communities. Integrating private security with law enforcement is crucial in Trinidad and Tobago to strengthen the overall security framework and effectively address the existing crime trends. Dr. Montoute and Mr. Grant mentioned technology in the use of fighting crime. In today's digital age, technologies play a pivotal role in crime prevention and detection, from advanced surveillance cameras and biometric access control system to artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and data analytics. We leverage cutting-edge technologies to stay one step ahead of criminals, but by continuously investing in and adopting new technology, we enhance our capabilities and improve our effectiveness. The implementation of CCTV cameras, license plate recognition system, biometric access control has significantly bolstered surveillance capabilities and facilitated rapid responses to security incidents. Additionally, mobile apps for reporting crimes and emergencies have enabled the public to communicate with law enforcement more efficiently. The advancements are instrumental in combating crime and ensuring a safer environment for our citizens. We have witnessed several other technological innovation in the private security sector, such as drone technology, cybersecurity measures to protect data, electronic security systems, smart technology, and alarm systems. A notable advancement on the horizon is palm vein detection, palm meaning your hand, which will enhance identity verification in security system. While palm recognition isn't new, this technology will utilize the unique vein pattern of the palm to grant access to restricted areas. Focusing on the future of video surveillance system, the increasing utilization of these systems is evident. According to ACIS 2021, cameras continue to improve in light sensitivity, flexibility, resolution, especially with megapixels and sensors, and image processing capabilities. Video compression technology is advancing, significantly enhancing data transfer and communication between video devices and network appliances. Furthermore, audio technologies and network video will experience rapid improvements, impacting the security application broadly. Both wired and wireless network will continue to evolve, delivering increased performances. Appliances such as servers and storage devices will provide greater capacity at a reduced cost, while cloud-based applications and storage becomes more affordable. Video analytics management and intelligent video system will be easier for users to configure and will offer enhanced built-in functionality and software scalability. Additionally, remote and local control systems, as well as hosted services, will continue to advance. Intelligence sharing. Through collaborative private security firms, private security firms can share vital intelligence with law enforcement agencies, enhancing the overall understanding of criminal threats and enabling proactive measures. Establishing data sharing channels, private security firms, in other words, must share crime data and intelligence with law enforcement. According to Mariana Perry and Lawrence Finelli, 2012, in the book Loss Prevention and Crime Prevention, quote, crime prevention practitioners must understand prevailing crime patterns, including the types of location where specific crimes occur, such as home, businesses, schools, etc. Practitioners must also determine what crimes impact these areas, who are likely to commit them, how they might occur, when they are most likely to happen. A useful approach to understanding crime pressure is to compare the number of crimes of a particular type with the number of potential targets for that crime over a defined period. Creating partnership for real-time information exchange. Establishing strong partnership between security firms, law enforcement will facilitate real-time information sharing, as mentioned before, allowing for timely response in emerging threats. Forming a dedicated unit for collaboration between various private security associations, including private businesses, the TTPS, the University of the West Indies, and other stakeholders can promote strategies geared towards crime reduction. This unit can employ and implement various options to enhance security initiatives effectively. Let me just mention some training with regard to the private security. Structured training programs are essential for enhancing the skill set of private security personnel. Continuous learning and professional development. Continuous learning is crucial for ensuring that the security personnel in Trinidad and Tobago are equipped to address evolving security challenges. Training programs cover topics such as conflict resolution, emergency response, risk assessment, ESRM, which is enterprise security risk management, cybersecurity, don't forget cybersecurity, to help security professionals stay up to date with best practices and industry standard. By investing in professional growth of security personnel, organizations can enhance capabilities, improve operational efficiency, and deliver high-quality services to the community. Some certificates endorsed by the TTPSA are international certifications for companies such as ISO. Locally, we have STO for the energy sector. CPP, which is Certified Protection Professional, the gold standard in security management. Private Security Certified Investigator. Physical Security Professional, Certified Protection Officer, an instructor, and the new Master Certified Protection Officer instructor. These are internationally acclaimed certification. I see some members of the ASIS South chapter here. We have some professionals which we must recognize at this time. Collaboration with law enforcement for joint exercises and workshops is beneficial for sharing knowledge and enhancing operational effectiveness. The Private Security Association has recently established a private security education committee aimed at specific training for private security companies and enhancing industry standard. Because of time, I will just cut down a little bit here and some challenges and consideration experienced by my members. And some of those challenges are addressing issues such as trust, accountability, and legal limitation regarding collaboration, ensuring that private entities comply with regulation and ethical standards in security measures. Information here is that railway police have historically been a privately employed police force with full law enforcement authority, just for information here. While the supplemental police department and the firearms sections should be commended, there are areas this association looks forward to addressing that affect most of our members. Reviewing the process from application to delivery of precepts. The process of FUECs also requires a review. The age requirement related to precepts holders need to also be examined. State contract for private security must lead in terms of rates, allowing companies to easily comply with labor laws. So one mentioned that security are paid a low rate, etc. We can consider a special minimum wage for security officers. And I'm speaking from experience. You have one state entity who says point blankly, we do not pay double time on public holidays. So, in concluding, let me quickly, I just have 1 minute.
Less than 1 minute.
Less than 1 minute. Okay. All right. In my capacity as the president of the TTPSA, please permit me to use this opportunity to entreat all levels in every sphere of professional security arena to lend their time, talents toward this Herculean task that is before us. The task which I speak is commonly called cooperation. This is sounding for such a call should not faze any of us, because we have demonstrated as a people that we can work together to achieve excellence. Perhaps the best known example is the steel pan. And I end there, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Neptune. You know, listening to you, I realize that I think you need to have your own private meeting with law enforcement and with the Ministry of National Security.
Certainly.
And yes, so you could spend an entire day, because what you have shared is so comprehensive, so detailed, that they would need to dissect it. So the minister is at your, suggest you make that connection. So thank you again. And you also shared some things that were repeated earlier: accountability, the legal aspect, which Mr. Joseph mentioned. You mentioned the wages again. So I again think that you need to have a meeting with the Labor Inspectorate Unit, so that your organization or association can set those standards with respect to wages. I screeched in my seat when I heard you say that double time, somebody was not going to pay double time on a public holiday. And I looked across at Mr. Mohammed and I was like, oh no. But this is a good thing, right? Because we are here to collaborate. We are here to work together. We are here to improve things in Trinidad and Tobago. Okay, so we have left, I wouldn't say the best for last, because I'll probably get shot by the panel. ACP Richard Smith is someone who has been in the media, I mean, almost every week, twice a week, he said. And he's someone who I truly admire. I personally really admire him. He is the Assistant Commissioner of Police. And when he gave me his portfolio, I was like, you are the ACP for everything in the TTPS. You know, he was recently appointed the ACP for the extortion unit, and then he was in the Northwestern Division, and now he is in the, please correct me, the Assistant Commissioner of Police for the Criminal Division, the Special Operations, which I understand was started because of the SOE, the CID and CRO, the Homicide, Professional Standards Bureau, Special Victims Unit, Victim Witness and Support Unit. My God. Mr. Smith, you need a lot of prayer and a lot of support. In addition to which, he said to me that next month, March, would make 37 years since he's been in the police service. I think that deserves. So ACP Smith, we have left you for the last on the panel because we know that what you have to bring to this table is going to be even more valuable. So ACP Smith, over to you, 10 minutes maximum.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wheeler. Honorable Fitzgerald Hines, Minister of National Security, permit me to stand on the protocols already existing. Good evening, everyone. My topic is strengthening public safety by collaborative strategies between Trinidad and Tobago Police Service and the private security industry. Have the speakers before me. To shorten this, I can say I agree, and we can all go home this evening. But the TTPS point of view is that the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service is committed to its objectives of ensuring public safety and security through crime prevention strategies. This is outlined in two key areas of our strategic plan. So our strategic plan, which was developed for 2023 to 2025, one of the strategic areas in question here now is community partnership. And when we look under community partnership, one of the outcomes that we have is to build effective stakeholder partnership, which includes security companies. The second one, of utmost importance, is public safety. And under one of the outcomes of public safety is to improve safety in public spaces. We have both items coming together in this symposium, public safety as well as collaboration, which means partnership, partnering persons. The public safety pillar also aligns the TTPS mandate to maintain law and order, preserve the peace, protect life and property, prevent and detect crime, apprehend offenders, and enforce all laws and regulations. As it pertains to strengthening public safety, the TTPS continues to foster partnership with various key stakeholders, in particular, the private security industry. Over time, the TTPS has established formal and informal networks with various private security agencies so as to improve public safety and security in residential communities, commercial and business sectors, as well as industrial estates. Realistically, the TTPS is unable to be omnipresent, as was alluded to by most of the speakers. We have recognized the need to collaborate with the private security companies, estate police, and private state security companies as well. The private security industry has a manpower complement of approximately 50,000 plus, as was also alluded to by the speakers before me, comprising of guards, security officers, precepted and unprecepted, estate police officers. Through this alliance, the TTPS is affording more than the extra eyes and ears to combat crime throughout the various police divisions. Now I'm going into the practical aspect of it now. Now we recognize the need for collaboration many years ago. That's the reason we place that as one of the pillars in our strategic plan. In 2016, retired Acting Commissioner of Police McDonald Jacob, who was then the Senior Superintendent in Port of Spain Division, developed a program called the Watchman Project. And this project, I will go into some details about that. Established in 2016, it involved the provision of critical information from security guards who are assigned to safeguard estates and assets of the private sector. So security guards as well as watchmen. This initiative was instrumental in the intelligence gathering, as well as we formed a database of authorized security companies with reliable security officers for the exchange of any relevant information pertaining to crimes committed in the communities or suspicious persons or activities taking place in and around Port of Spain. So this was designed mainly for Port of Spain, the capital city of Trinidad and Tobago. This initiative, this Watchman initiative, proved quite successful because we were experiencing a series of break-ins into stores, into other offices and business places in Port of Spain. We were also experiencing a series of larceny fixtures. This is when you have your air-conditioned units and other fixtures attached to your building and persons stealing them. There were several reports of robberies taking place in and around Port of Spain. And these watchmen, as well as security officers, were quite instrumental in giving us intelligence and information as it relates to these crimes. We also looked at the commercial spaces. The TTPS recognized that security officers attached to commercial spaces such as malls, shopping centers, businesses, and offices serve a pivotal role in deterrence of crime. Through coordinated approaches, the TTPS were able to solve many crimes relating to larceny motor vehicles, robberies, shoplifting, and other crimes targeting victims in these commercial spaces. The TTPS also relies on technology resources from these entities such as CCTV and otherwise. We have recognized over time, and to give some practical experiences, particular mall in South Gulf City Mall, we were experiencing larceny motor vehicles. Approximately 10 vehicles were being stolen per day in Gulf City in 2009 to 2010. With the assistance of the mall security at Gulf City, we were able to plan some strategies. We were able to set up a trap vehicle and apprehend 5 suspects in relation to those larceny motor vehicles. From that operation, we were able to arrest 15 suspects as well and recover 18 vehicles in those operations because of the collaboration between TTPS and the mall security at Gulf City Mall. Again, we looked at Trin City Mall that were also experiencing this said larceny motor vehicles in the years 2010 as well as 2011. Collaboration with the security company at Trin City Mall resulted in the arrest of several suspects and the recovery of several vehicles in these larceny motor vehicle rings. We also looked at robberies and ATM machine fraud or robberies that were taking place in some of these plazas as well as these malls, where the security officers were able to assist the fraud squad who had set up a unit, as well as local police officers in the divisions in capturing several persons who were involved in these types of operations. So we know the value of security officers, we know the value of watchmen, we know the value of all these estate constables. We know that these estate constables who work throughout Trinidad and Tobago, because their estate may be wide at times, are quite valuable because to and from their routes, they're able to identify several issues and crimes that are taking place in those areas and are able to assist TTPS in arresting persons in many instances, I would say. So we are no stranger to partnering. One of our major partners at this time is the TTDF, and I see they are well represented here today, sir. Thank you for coming, sir. And we are very happy to have you here as testimony as to what we are actually doing in partnering with other agencies. We look at estate officers represent both private and state entities and are guided by the Supplemental Police Act. They comprise of precept FUEC holders and unprecepted officers who maintain law and order in their respective estates within the remits of the Supplemental Police Act. These entities are provide added visibility when necessary. They can enforce the law, detect offenses, arrest suspects, and lay charges through the assistance of the police in some instances. Now, under the Criminal Law Act, any person can arrest somebody who they see is in the act of committing an arrestable offense or any offense once they see them. The thing is, when you have precepted officers, they can now proceed to charge these persons having arrested them for these offenses. When we have security officers performing duties in different business places who are unprecepted, so we call them security officers when they are unprecepted, and when they are precepted, they are estate constables, and they go up the rank accordingly. So they are not allowed to charge persons when they are an SO, a security officer, but they are relied upon to give evidence having detected the offense and providing that or performing that citizen arrest, as we call it. The precepted officers, on the other hand, are the ones who could detect and as well as charge these persons and take them before the courts. State entities include WASA, Tiantec, Heritage Petroleum, Port Authority, Airport Authority, all these different agencies. And the private sector estates include, well, I'll just call a few: SWAT Security, Amalgamated Security, G4S, and I call these companies the private ones because of my personal experience with them. From the rank of sergeant, I started working with the SESL security company in Southern Division. They provided support to us even back then, and that is around 2008, we started networking with the SESL. Having attained the rank of senior superintendent and being a divisional commander, I also knew the value of security companies. So whilst at Southern Division for Carnival 2022, I was able to get the assistance of Amalgamated Security, SWAT Security, to assist me in providing community comfort patrols as well as industrial estate patrols during the Carnival and Christmas season. So while we have TTPS officers engaged in duties in the built-up areas, in the cities, in the towns, we have the estate officers working alongside TTPS and providing community comfort patrols in the residential area as well as the industrial estate. And that initiative have proven to be quite effective in both Southern Division as well as North Central Division. Having come to North Central Division in 2023, I met Mr. Neil Budu Singh, who is here, and several other persons from the Tunapuna Business Chamber, and we formed our stakeholders. We had stakeholders meetings on a regular basis. Arising from these stakeholders meetings, we were able to forge a great alliance with all the security companies in that division, as well as the mall securities, U.W.I security, the airport security as well, and some of the bank securities started attending these meetings, and as well as the industrial, some Carib security as well, and other industries up there. And we were able to come up with the Eagle Eye project. It was a brainchild of Mr. Neil Budu Singh, who is here, and the Eagle Eye project is a surveillance project as it relates to cameras being placed throughout the Tunapuna district in the first instance, the business district. And this, we forged that relationship. In the first instance, it was a cost issue as it relates to the Tunapuna Police Station Council and the business chamber trying to raise that amount of money to put individual cameras at all the businesses. However, with the intervention of the Citizen Surveillance Network, they are also here today, they came in and offered a nice package to our team, and we were able to implement that program. And I think now the subscription is $99 per month. And here this deal. This deal is cameras, as well as a strobe light, as well as a super siren for every subscriber. You can, when there's problems, when there's a robbery or anything taking place, you can activate that device on your cell phone or even a physical device, and it is monitored 24/7 by the TTPS at the Tunapuna Police Station. We also do our own response, so we have immediate response taking place, as well as we can have footage taken as required for court purposes, as well as for reviewing for intelligence and otherwise. We also have them strategically placed so that we can look at all the entrances and exits in that area, and we have been receiving calls to go to other districts in Trinidad and Tobago. This has been proven to be quite successful, and now we are hoping to expand it to more districts in Trinidad and Tobago. So I say with the greatest confidence that collaborating with private securities as well as collaboration with anyone, we do not know everything, and we welcome any suggestions anybody could make, and we welcome brilliant ideas. and we are willing to take them and work with anyone. And I thank you for this time to present.
Thank you very much, ECP Smith. So we have many questions that came in, and we thank you for your questions. What I would ask is to indulge in a bit more of your time. I am going to allow the panelists some time to look at the questions. While they are looking at the questions and preparing their answers, we are going to invite Dr. Pawiński and Dr. Annita Montoute, and they're both going to come and present the research which they conducted on private security. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, ladies. We just gonna ask them to come and present the research findings.
Thank you, moderator and panelists. Because of the place that we are have come in the program, I will not say all that I was supposed to say tonight. The intention was for us to make a brief presentation, provide research highlights, and my role would have been to provide the background and context, and then to indicate the novelty of the research. When you work in academia as a faculty member, as an academic, whenever we conduct research, we have to show how our research contributes to knowledge. How it fills a particular gap in the scholarly literature to make a policy contribution. But because of the presentations we've had, I think I'm going to skip the background and context, because the information I have there in terms of the overall literature and the background and some of the private security police collaboration that have taken place, that has already been dealt with. So please bear with me instead to go straight into the novelty and the contribution that this research is making to the academic literature. And then I'm going to pass on to Dr. Pawiński, who's going to talk about the substantive aspects of the research, the actual findings. So I would want to start by saying that despite the prevalence of the private security industry in Trinidad and Tobago globally, this significant development has not been matched by research and policy discussions on the sector. And more importantly, how this vast and valuable resource can be utilized to enhance overall public security. So we know about the policy discussions, and we all agree that we need to do it. But in terms of research, academic and scholarly research, and most of the panelists, or a lot of the persons who have spoken, have said that it's important that research drives policy, that needs to be evidence-based. And even if there's a lot of discussion and agreement that needs to be done, but in terms of the scholarly literature, we see that there is a gap here. So academic writings have addressed the growth of the industry, regulation and governance of the sector, the potential collaboration of the state and the police, but none has sought to understand the subject from the perspectives of the main actors at the center of the matter. That's private security companies themselves, right? Persons are writing about private security. Academics are writing about private security, but to get their perspectives, to understand crime and security and collaboration from their own eyes and from their own perspective, that is the void that this research is attempting to fill. From a policy level, despite numerous initiatives to address rising insecurity, violent crime continues unabated in Trinidad and Tobago. This necessitates the exploration of alternative approaches and strategies with the view to addressing the scourge of crime in this country. As such, the project focuses on police-private security collaboration as a possible crime prevention reduction strategy from the perspective of the private security actors themselves. This paper argues, the research argues that the vast resources of the private security sector have not been sufficiently tapped. We know that a lot has been done, but we argue that it's not sufficiently tapped and should be leveraged in a strategic and systematic manner. And I'm happy that the panelists and the minister and other persons have explained some of the barriers to that. For advancing public security. In that vein, the nature of and results of past collaboration, and even present ones, must be reviewed reevaluated as part of the way forward. So having said that, I now pass on to Dr. Pawiński to talk about the actual findings of the research. Dr. Pawiński?
Thank you very much, Dr. Montoute. So I'm actually glad to hear what the panelists have spoken so far, because it does correspond to the research findings, including, for example, the ways to forge new partnerships and collaborations more effectively, to build trust and communicate between different actors. So I'm very glad to hear that it is happening right now, this communication, through this symposium, and propose alternative models to enhance public security by leveraging the resources of private security companies. So the results of the project soon will be published and shared with the stakeholders and the public. We just briefly summarize the key findings, the reflections of the interviewees that shared with us during the research. For example, among the factors that were undermining the collaboration between the private security industry and the police was a significant absence of structured governance and legal frameworks that would promote the collaboration. So there is existing Supplemental Police Act of 1906, but it is relatively limited and does not adequately address the needs of modern private security sector industry. Although there are efforts to provide the legal framework, for example, through the Private Security Bill, however, the process is slow and inconsistent. What is more, the bill is not regulating possible ways of collaboration with the law enforcement agencies. Furthermore, there is no law or policy that sets the minimum standards for the private security companies in terms of equipment, insurance, working conditions, which was mentioned before about the fair payment. There is also, more importantly, a lack of minimum standardized training requirements for security officers, which is sometimes sporadic and inconsistent, which also was mentioned before. Therefore, until now, the private security sector, private security companies, with officers have been perceived as unequal partners in enhancing the public security. But that time has changed and that change is needed. So in order to strengthen the support and the partnership between private and police security partnership, there's a critical need for comprehensive reform of legal and regulatory framework to professionalize the private security sector that should be industry-wide through norm standardization. The proposed private security bill should be inclusive by taking multi-stakeholder approach, by engaging not only large companies which were mentioned in here by the panelists, but also medium and small companies, civil society actors, academia, and private sector. This norm standardization would allow for leveraging private security industry potential that is over our dimensioned 50,000 officers that are present 24 hours per 7 at every corner in every community. The companies could also bring cutting-edge technology, which was mentioned by Mr. Neptune. So to have further implementation of successful collaboration between private security and the police, there should be a multi-stakeholder centralized governance body similar to Private Security Network Commission that would coordinate practical implementation of strategies like community patrolling. And further professionalization of private security companies is needed perhaps through establishment of Center of Excellence for training of private security officers at the University of the West Indies as an impartial entity that is a potential also solution to providing the necessary guidelines and standards among the private security sector. So for the next steps and perhaps more research, there is a need for multi-stakeholder evidence-based solutions that expand the current project by including private sector, community leaders, and the government, implementation of crime prevention through environmental design as an example of how private security companies can collaborate with the police, and establishment of mentioned center of excellence within the University of the West Indies. So I do hope that this was a food for thought before the discussion and answering the questions that I see are already ready for response. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Pawiński and Dr. Montoute. And you know what I heard there is they were echoing what we've heard the practitioners, Minister Hines, yes. They have echoed what the practitioners have said. And I mean, I would want to just suggest, Dr. Pawiński, Dr. Montoute, that those findings be shared with the Ministry of National Security and also with our parliamentary colleagues. So they can, you know, a hearing and echoing of what the practitioners have said, the structural governance, the legal frameworks, centralized body, training. And we want to encourage training. U.W.I is an institution that can be considered to provide the certified training, and also the multi-stakeholder, multi-agency approach. So we are seeing a marrying of the practical and what is recommended on policy from the research. And as we said, data is what drives policy. So here we have the research and the data, and we have a draft policy with the ministry, and we have the practitioners, and they seem to be singing the same song. Questions, and we received a lot of questions. I basically divided the questions based on what the topic was and what each panelist covered. And so they may not be able to cover all of your questions, but certainly they've had some time to look at it, and they will probably try to summarize some of the responses in the interest of time. We know we all want to go and cocktail or attend a carnival event or something, or just get home. So I'm going to ask who wants to go first. Okay, so ACP Smith.
All right. Yeah, this first question is, if the PNM loses the next general election and the UNC wins, what shall be any anticipated impact or risks on current crime preventative measures? And I'm saying no matter who wins or who remains in power, the TTPS remains committed to doing what we normally do. Right, next question. After 2 months of the implementation of the SOE, what is the results of crime reduction? Do you think it is effective? On 2 days for the week, Monday and Fridays, we do a press briefing as it relates to the SOE. Thus far, we have been seeing a significant reduction in violent crimes as well as property crimes in Trinidad and Tobago. We have also been seeing a significant increase in the seizure of firearms and ammunition from the streets of Trinidad and Tobago as well. We have also seen, as it relates to murders, a reduction in murders, but I'm going to knock on wood here now, because, you know, when we talk about murders, something seems to happen, right? So I wouldn't go much into that. We have also seen over 200 kilograms of marijuana being seized during our operations. Just last week, in an operation by the Special Operations Unit, together with the Defense Force, we were able to seize 183 packets of marijuana weighing a total of 103 kilograms, as well as a pistol in an operation in East Trinidad. So, you know, we have been collaborating and we have been seeing the successes from the SOE. Some persons may not see it, but we know the constraints that we were experiencing over a period of time, and we know that we have been able to do what we could not have done with this SOE. However, we know that the SOE must end at some point in time, and we are putting in place contingencies to continue to have this reduction in violent crimes as well as property crimes. Thank you. I'm going on to this other question. Why is it so bureaucratic for private security to first receive protective services agency status, then the same institution commences another investigation on the authorized body to receive an FUL, can the expectation not be that from the onset there would be a need for arms, so one investigation can be done to save on time? Not every security company starts off asking for firearms, so we cannot just assume that they would be requesting firearms. Whatever they apply for in the first instance, we would deal with that. We know that we want the best persons to be security officers, so there must be some form of vetting. So we have to do our due process and ensure that you get the best quality of security officers or even estate officers outside there. One thing I want to add as well is I have sworn in hundreds of officers for precept. And one of the questions I ask them, because I see each one of them individually, I do not swear them in a group. I interview each one of them. It takes some time. But the reason I do that is to find out whether they know what they are getting into, whether they are aware of what being precepted means. And 75% of the persons who come there only believe that being precepted allows them to carry a firearm. Some of them do not even know they have the power to arrest persons at that stage, and they have to charge persons and take them to court. They are only concerned with carrying a firearm. So tell me about that, right? So we're looking at quickening this pace to get persons there. But if we have trigger-happy persons coming to be security officers, then we might be posing a risk to persons outside there as well. So we must look at that, and we will take our time and do proper investigations, right? If it takes some time and it's bureaucratic to some persons, we are just trying to get the best security officers or best estate officers outside there to you.
This person is asking, with the rise of AI and cybercrime, we also need to recognize cybersecurity firms as we are recognizing private security and by extension, national security apparatus. How can we make this happen? Join us in our call here today. Come sit with us, contact us. I agree with you, cybersecurity and the rise of technology, AI, even quantum computing, we can have more crime, more hackers, and things happening. So we call on these cybersecurity firms to join with us at the Trinidad and Tobago Private Security Association. So this is a call to you to contact us, and let's get going.
Okay, so we're going to take one response from Mr. Joseph. Mr. Tiwari, would you like to respond to any of your questions? We'll take one from Mr. Tiwari, one or more from ACP Smith, and one more from Mr. Neptune in the interest of time. So I'll start down at the end, Mr. Joseph, just to respond to one. If you want to group your questions and just give one response to them, and then we move on to Mr. Tiwari.
Thank you. Synopsis of at least two of my questions basically is how can we solve crime? The minister is there first. I'm thinking of putting that question to the minister, but I won't do that. I'm the honorable minister. The reality is there is no, and I actually script my answer because that was such a difficult question. There is no silver bullet against crime. Rather, there are many building blocks in terms of how to manage and deal with crime. Crime could be reduced significantly with those building blocks in terms of implementing those building blocks. Our focus must shift towards systematic change. And in terms of those systematic change, dismantling basically before, what we looked at or what we usually and what we are looking at is or our traditional efforts look at targeting criminal groups and markets. That's our traditional way. Let's target those gangs, let's target this, let's target that. Are we actually getting sustainable results with that way? I'm not saying it's not a good way, but are we getting sustainable results? We must shift our focus towards those systematic change, like dismantling the conditions that enable crime. So let's look at the private security industry. I think all speakers here noted that there needs regulation, proper regulation in the private security. Without proper regulation, you'll have issues of illegality happening, issues of exploitation. So what do? You need to change the environment. So we need to start looking at crime in terms of how do we change different environments. The assistant commissioner spoke about how we change the environment in Tunapuna. It's one way. So whether it's crime security by environmental design or different ways. So we need to change our perspective, how we change different environment, but that's just one way. And there are many different building blocks, but in terms of the traditional way of just targeting those criminals, targeting this, targeting that, are we actually receiving lasting and sustainable results? We must ask ourselves that question. I thank you.
I agree. So I have a question that I'm not sure how to answer. It goes, how does the public know that that the very stakeholders who are calling for the safety of our communities are not monetizing fear and insecurity, driving up demand for security as a commodity? Who guards the guard? Listen, in any grouping, any society, people will have different interests. Some of them will be inimical to the interests of the group. I think I said that in my opening. I said that ideally, this should be a conversation about reducing the need for the numbers of police and private security officers. Because crime and safety, if we are able to improve it, will do more for Trinidad and Tobago than any other single intervention. We live in an absolute paradise by any measure, if we can enjoy it safely. And if we can do that, we will no longer be talking about brain drain, but we'll be talking about brain circulation, because so many people who are outside, who are of Trinidadian and Tobagonian origin, will want to come home, and so many people who hear about us will start coming here and want to make it their home. So we have to ensure that we have the systems and procedures in place to go after those bad actors. And those actors, I think, are worse, much worse, than the young men whose pictures we see plastered across the front page of the papers. And I am saying, from an AmCham perspective, we have always advocated for an aggressive approach to white-collar crime. Because if we do not go after the criminals who are slapping the label of business person onto themselves and destroying our society, we will get nowhere. So to answer your question, we don't know for sure whether people's intentions and their words match their deeds. But what we can do is put in place better, more robust systems to detect, prosecute, convict, and therefore make them pay when they do the things that are inimical to the development of our society, and specifically fraud, drug dealing, money laundering. We need to ensure that we are more aggressive, deliberate, strategic in dealing with those crimes.
Okay, my final question, is that it?
Yes, fine.
Okay. The discussion on private security firms being integrated with law enforcement is admirable. However, crime is now exacerbated by cyber threats and artificial intelligence. How do you envision the workings of such a partnership on the issue of data privacy and security in light of the hacks on key institutions over the past 5 years? So what I understand this question to be, or what I would answer this question by saying, it's an issue of trust as it relates to this collaboration with TTPS or law enforcement and these private security. Now, it's something that is hard to develop or hard to come by because it's separate agencies or independent agencies coming together to work for the benefit of the state or the people of Trinidad and Tobago. What we have to do is develop a framework, firstly, so that we would have checks and balances as it relates to persons who would be working in these areas. And then we'll have to have some system in place for us to integrate properly so that we'll be able to cut down the mistrust between both or all the entities. We have been working together with these private securities as well as other entities thus far. We know that we have some challenges, or we have had challenges in the past. We have overcome them if we had to arrest and charge persons for offenses that they have committed. Whilst we were working together, we would in fact do that. And we would continue to do that as long as we intend to serve this nation with pride, as our acronym PRIDE. And you know that this trust issue is something that is quite serious and is something that we must develop if we intend to go further with this collaboration. Thank you.
Yes. I just want to say on that, and Minister, I know you would appreciate this, and I don't necessarily mean appreciate as in welcome, appreciate as in understand. A lot of these things really start with the legislative and regulatory framework, right? So if our Data Protection Act is not finalized and implemented, if our cybersecurity legislative framework is weaker than it needs to be, and companies don't have any obligation to report when they've been breached, we have challenges, we have gaps. And therefore, we need to, my view is that we need to have very effective but light touch regulation across the society. We live in a society where the state is involved in everything, every business, every sector as an operator. So it's very difficult to be operator and regulator. But we need to, and I saw, Mr. Lynch, you looked a little confused when I said light touch, but effective regulators, meaning the regulator shouldn't try to be involved in everything. They should only be involved in things that have a public interest risk and a clear and present public interest danger, but effectively, efficiently, and in a timely manner address those issues. Yeah, that's what I mean by effective light touch regulations. In the meantime, we do have some level of collaboration with TT-CERT and the like, so that there is some level of information sharing. It could be better, but I think if the TTPS and the other agencies of the state were to take the approach and the philosophical approach that Mr. Smith outlined of collaboration, he would find very, very willing and supportive partners in the private sector. And so we would welcome an expansion of that as we go forward, yes? Yeah.
This person is asking, is there any attempt to change the age at which a state constable can obtain FUECs, down from 25 years old back to 18 years or even 20 years? And what they are saying is what happened here is the officer joining at 18 years and obtaining his EC status has to wait 6 or 7 years before getting an increase in wages and so on. So basically what they are saying is if it's possible to move it from 18 to 25 at that time, it is not in our merit notwithstanding that we could submit in that regard. Okay?
Thank you very much. And let us show appreciation to all our members of parliament who are present. And our appreciation to the panelists. I think they did a fantastic job. So I hand back over to our mistress or lady of ceremonies, and I'll ask the panelists if we can proceed to our seats. Yes, thank you.
Our esteemed presenters and panelists, a heartfelt thank you. Each of your unique and illuminating perspectives, backed by experience and research, has indeed provided a wealth of insight into the potential for heightened public security through collaboration and a shared vision. Your insights have undoubtedly provided us with a deeper understanding of the challenges we face and the opportunities available that lie ahead for meaningful collaboration. To our moderator, Ms. Alana Wheeler, we are truly grateful for your skillful guidance of this discussion, ensuring that critical issues were explored with clarity and depth. Your wealth of experience and dedication to security and advocacy has been evident throughout. In the spirit of sparking new ideas, deepening our understanding, and reinforcing the importance of innovative strategies, data-driven decision-making, and multi-sectoral partnerships in tackling crime, we look forward to your continued meaningful action, cooperation, and dialogue. We now invite Dr. Akola Lewis-Cameron, Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences, to deliver closing remarks.
We cold. Yes. Minister Hines and all other distinguished guests who braced the cold and stayed with us till the end. And as we bring this evening to a close, we are reminded that it is better to prevent crimes than to punish them. And so initiatives such as this symposium provide the opportunity to engage in meaningful dialogue on finding practical solutions to crime reduction and prevention based on empirical research. So the research presented this evening underscored the pressing need, and we've heard it time and time again by all presenters, for a multi-pronged, multi-stakeholder approach to crime prevention and reduction. As emphasized in the panel discussion, the stress on the resources of law enforcement agencies can be alleviated through closer collaboration with the private security industry. And I think that is certainly the takeaway this evening. This type of multi-agency partnership is a critical tool in the arsenal in enhancing public security in Trinidad and Tobago, and of course, potentially in other Caribbean small island developing states. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank Drs. Montoute and Pawiński for sharing their insights on the impactful research that they have done, and of course to thank Dr. Pawiński for taking lead on this initiative. And we do appreciate the time, effort, and commitment in making this evening a success. To our Honorable Minister, our experienced moderator, our dedicated panelists, thank you for saying yes to our request, to sharing your views this evening. To our partners, the TNT Private Security Association, Greater Tunapuna Chamber of Industry and Commerce, this is what it's all about, demonstrating that effective collaboration can lead to meaningful outcomes. And so we trust that this partnership will deepen, that it will expand as we continue to make our contributions to improving public safety. Ladies and gentlemen, this event would not have been possible without the generous support of our sponsors. And so we want to thank you for understanding the importance of this initiative and providing your tangible backing. Right. We appreciate and also recognize the hardworking internal team at the U.W.I, inclusive of the hardworking administrative staff of the IIR sitting at the back, and the marketing team, the technical staff. And as I close, I want to reaffirm the institute's and by extension the faculty and the university's commitment to enhancing public safety by engaging in impactful research. We also reaffirm our commitment to bringing awareness and understanding to our stakeholders through forums like this. And finally, we reaffirm our commitment to collaborating with our stakeholders to generate solutions to the issues discussed. I thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we bring this symposium to a close, I would like to express our profound appreciation to everyone who contributed to the invigorating discussion. The intellectual rigor in the audience and on the dais tonight was palpable. The dialogue ignited here tonight certainly sets the stage for meaningful action and continued discussions, hopefully serving as a catalyst for concrete policy reforms and hard-hitting security enhancements in Trinidad and Tobago. As we move forward, let us take tonight's discussions beyond these walls, translating ideas into action and fostering greater cooperation between the private security industry, law enforcement, and the wider society. Heartfelt thanks to all of our guests and stakeholders from government, law enforcement, private security, academia, and civil society who have taken the time to be here today. Your presence reflects a shared commitment to a safer, more secure Trinidad and Tobago. And to all of our sponsors, we again offer our sincere thanks. Before we depart, we invite you to join us for a networking reception in the courtyard. This will be an excellent opportunity to continue the discussion and build strategic partnerships in the interest of national security. Also, kindly note that you can donate to the Student Development Fund just as you exit the auditorium to your left, where you will find a bank card machine. Thank you, do enjoy, and remain safe. Thank you.